This happened not too long ago. I'm Jake, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. I moved into this older apartment building, excited to work from home. It was just me and my laptop, soaking in my independence. I thought the quiet neighborhood would help my creativity thrive. But that night changed everything. It was a typical Wednesday evening, and I was really focused on my design project. I barely noticed the time passing. Then I heard it, a faint tapping sound coming from the window. I brushed it off as the wind or maybe a branch. After all, weird noises were part of the charm of this place, right? But as I worked, the tapping continued. Each tap pulled me away from my screen. My heart raced faster, but I tried to ignore it. I got up to check, but I didn't see anything outside. Just darkness. I shook my head, telling myself it was nothing. I went back to my desk, but the tapping wouldn't stop. The sound was starting to creep me out. Maybe I was just tired. Over the next few days, the tapping became a scratching sound behind the drywall. It felt like something alive was trying to get out. My cat, Luna, started acting strange. She stared at blank corners of the room for minutes, wide-eyed and unblinking. I was worried about her and my own sanity. Then, one night, things got worse. I was about to call it a day when I opened my design files. That's when I saw them. Images I didn't recognize. They were disturbing. Faces twisted in pain, shadows swirling around them. I felt cold sweat trickle down my back. I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing. I thought maybe I'd clicked something by accident, but thinking back, that didn't explain the scratching or the tapping. After that, I stopped working at night. It just felt wrong. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but I felt something was watching me from those walls. I moved furniture, thinking it would help, but each night felt heavier. The apartment felt like it was holding its breath. Then, one dark evening, I finally found the courage to sit back down. I heard the tapping again, louder this time, followed by an eerie stillness. My fists clenched. Sweat dripped down my forehead. I inhaled deeply, feeling dread fill my lungs. Then I turned to look at the wall and froze. A whisper followed the cold chill. I couldn't understand what it said, but it sent a wave of fear through me. I instinctively got up, feeling frozen in place. I still don't know what happened that night. All I know is that whatever was there, it was real. The tapping, the scratching, the images, they all haunted me. Friends told me to call a professional, but who would believe me? I kept Luna close, even when she stared at shadows. I was scared, and there was no explanation for any of it. The next day, I decided to take action. I couldn't go on like this. I needed answers. My first step was to talk to the building manager, a grumpy old man named Mr. Dawson. I approached him as he was sweeping the front steps, his scowl deepening when he saw me. "Can I help you?" he asked, clearly annoyed. Yeah. I've been hearing some weird noises in my apartment," I said, my voice shaky. "Like tapping and scratching sounds." He paused, eyeing me skeptically. "This place creaks. Your pipes are old. Maybe you've got rats." "Rats?" I felt a lump form in my throat. "What about the—" "Don't worry about it." He waved his hand dismissively. "Just old building stuff. Nothing to fret over." I didn't feel reassured. As I walked back to my apartment, a dread settled in my stomach. Rats didn't explain the images or Luna's behavior. I needed more information. That evening, I decided to dig into the history of the building. I found a small library nearby and spent hours poring over old records. I learned that the building had been constructed in the late 1920s. It had a rough past, stories of accidents, missing persons, and strange happenings. But one entry caught my attention. A couple who lived in my apartment vanished without a trace in 1937. No one knew what happened to them. As the sun began to set, I felt a chill in the air. I headed home, heart heavy with what I'd found. When I got back to my place, Luna was on high alert, staring at something in the corner of the room. My gut twisted. I made a mental note to get a camera to record the strange occurrences. Just as I started to plan, the scratching returned. It sounded angrier this time. I felt a bead of sweat roll down my back as I glanced at the wall, waiting for something to reveal itself. Nothing happened. Then I noticed my laptop was on. I hadn't touched it since closing it the night before. When I opened it, my breath hitched. The same disturbing faces, twisted in agony, were back on the screen, but now they seemed to shift, as if they were trying to escape the confines of the screen. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash from the kitchen, causing me to jump out of my chair. I rushed to check, half hoping it was Luna knocking something over. But when I rounded the corner, I froze. The room was dark, and on the floor my heavy ceramic mug lay shattered. As I crouched to pick it up, a whisper broke through the silence, clear and concise. "Help us." Goosebumps flooded my arms. Before I could process it, the lights flickered, the whispering stopped, and everything went dead silent. My heart pounded in my chest. I was not just haunted by tapping or disturbing images. Something was calling for me. I backed away slowly, my instincts screaming at me to leave that space. But where could I go? As I turned to escape to my bedroom, I saw something in the darkest corner. A shadow, darker than the surroundings. It moved. My stomach dropped as I silently wondered if I had any more time to figure this out before whatever it was decided to make itself known. As I stood there, my breath shallow, the shadow grew clearer, like black smoke twisting into a form. I blinked, hoping it was just my eyes playing tricks. But the figure remained, low and elongated. Panic surged through me. "What are you?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. The darkness didn't respond. Instead, it melted away into the corner. I backed away from the kitchen, almost stumbling over Luna, who had taken my retreat as a cue to bolt for the living room. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table and switched on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the kitchen, where the shards of my mug still lay scattered. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I needed to calm down. I needed a plan. I turned to Luna, curling up at the end of the couch. "It's okay, girl. It's just shadows." But she was still fixated on the corner. Her fur bristled, tail tucked tightly. I felt a chill. Shadows weren't just shadows anymore. I quickly decided to reach for my laptop, the device that had shown me those horrifying images. I felt it housed some connection to whatever presence existed in this apartment. Maybe, just maybe, it would reveal something else. As I powered it on, the screen flickered to life, and I opened the images again. They filled the screen, each face more desperate than the last. That's when I noticed something new. A small flicker in one of the corners of the images. I leaned closer, squinting. It looked like words scrambled across the surface. I could just make out the phrase, "Find the truth." While I scrolled through, the room fell into a deep silence again. I was torn between wanting answers and fearing what I might uncover. Then, I felt an electric wave rush through the air, followed by a sudden gust that sent my papers scattering from the coffee table. It was as if the apartment had come alive. I jumped to my feet, heart hammering, and shined the flashlight at the windows. They were shut tight, no draft to be found. I turned back to my laptop, heart racing even faster. The flicker appeared again. The screen morphed and a new image loaded. It was a newspaper clipping, one I hadn't seen before. It had a date from the 1930s. I read the headline, "Local couple vanishes, no leads in case." My breath hitched again. The couple, their photos stared back at me, eerily similar to the faces from before. But that wasn't all. I noticed something scrolled at the bottom of the article, a small detail hidden away. The couple was last seen leaving a dinner with friends on the night of Halloween. The realization punched me. Tomorrow was Halloween. I barely had time to process this when I heard scratching sounds again, much louder this time. My heart sank. The noise was coming from the walls, as if something was trying to claw its way out. I gripped my phone tighter. The urgency swelled within me. I knew I had to confront whatever was happening. I needed to find the truth before it was too late. But the shadows were thickening again, wrapping around the corners of my mind with a question. What truth was waiting for me to uncover? Just then, the lights flickered once more, plunging the room into darkness. In that moment, I felt an icy breath on my neck. Someone, or something, was in the room with me. I spun around, my heart racing as I clutched my phone like a lifeline. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing but empty space. I felt a powerful urge to flee, but my legs were frozen in place. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence responded. I took a shaky step forward, peering into the dark corners of the room, instinct telling me something was there. The scratching echoed again, sharper this time, as though it was getting closer, inching toward me from behind the walls. I swiveled back toward my laptop, desperate for any clues to keep the growing dread at bay. I ripped my gaze from the shadows and refocused on the screen, where the newspaper clipping still lingered. I realized I needed to keep looking. Maybe other clues could guide me. My fingers danced over the keyboard, searching for anything connected to the couple or the night they disappeared. That's when I stumbled upon a forum thread dedicated to local urban legends. My breath hitched when I noticed a post titled, "The Vanishing at Hollow's End." I clicked it open, and an unnerving chill coursed down my spine as I read about a supposed curse linked to the couple. It claimed families who lived in the house after them often experienced strange noises, shadows, and even visits from the couple's restless spirits. I felt sick. Had I unwittingly walked into something sinister? My fingers trembled as I scrolled further down the page. One user mentioned a ritual that could be performed on Halloween to communicate with lost souls, but it required a set of specific items, of which I had none. And then, as if mocking me, a new sound erupted from the walls. It was a low, groaning noise that made the hair on my arms stand up. Without thinking, I grabbed Luna and bolted for the door, but it wouldn't budge. I twisted the knob frantically, panic bubbling. Something was blocking it from the other side. Heart racing and breath coming in quick gasps, I pulled out my phone. I could call for help, but who would believe me? I could feel the shadows closing in again, the air thick and suffocating. Below my feet, I felt a vibration, like a heartbeat echoing through the floorboards. That's when I noticed Luna growl and arch her back. For the first time she faced the wall, her growl deepening into a ferocious bark. I turned to see shadows pooling at the corners of the room. The darkness seemed to stretch and expand, hovering, waiting. Desperate for an escape or a way to understand what was happening, I reached for my laptop again. But before I could click back to the thread, my screen flickered. A new image flashed across the display, a distorted figure standing outside my window, its features hidden in shadows. I stumbled back, my heart nearly pounding out of my chest. I was no longer alone. The thing in the picture matched the figure I had seen before, twisted and malevolent. Fighting the urge to scream, I backed away from the laptop and into Luna, who whined, her focus never leaving the wall. I knew at that moment I had to confront whatever it was. I had to uncover the truth. Then the lights went out entirely, and I was plunged into a darkness deeper than before. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and Luna's frenzied barking. I felt an icy whisper brushing past my ear, sending shockwaves through my heart as I stood paralyzed in the pitch-black room. Whatever I was about to face was more than just shadows. I realized then that my night was far from over. It was only just beginning. I stood still, frozen in the engulfing darkness. Any attempt to call out felt pointless. I couldn't even tell if my voice would carry beyond the walls of this haunted room. Luna was trembling now, pressing against my leg, her barking turning to low whimpers. I turned the flashlight back on, but the beam flickered, throwing erratic shadows everywhere. With every second that passed, dread settled deeper in my chest. I could sense something shifting in the blackness, hovering just out of reach. My pulse raced, urging me to act. I needed to find a way to get out, so I swung my body back towards the door. It was still unyielding, as if it had become part of the wall itself. "Come on!" I shouted, yanking at the handle once more. The door refused to budge, and I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I dropped to my knees, my breath harsh in my lungs, and pounded a fist against the floor. What was happening? Was this really just a trick of my mind? Then, in that raw moment of panic, I heard it. A soft, persistent tapping, It was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, but echoing from the far corner of the room. My heart skipped a beat as I turned towards the sound, flashlight steadying on a large old mirror hanging on the wall. My reflection was pale, wide-eyed, and trembling. But behind me, within the mirror's glass, I saw a glimmer of movement. I spun around, but there was nothing behind me. No one stood there. Turning back, I stared at the mirror as the tapping continued, quickening now. The shadow I had seen outside my window was not just in my head. I stepped closer, my breath catching in my throat. The tapping transformed into scratching, clawing, hard against the frame of the mirror, a frantic sound. It was as if whatever was trapped wanted out. I could barely comprehend what I was witnessing. I wanted to run, but I was anchored to the spot by fear. Then it happened. The mirror rippled, wave-like as if it were water. It shimmered and distorted my reflection, twisting it into something unrecognizable. My heart raced again, drowning out every logical thought I had left. It felt alive, ominous, and beckoning. That's when I saw a glimpse of a face, someone staring back at me with hollow eyes, mouth stretched in silent scream, an endless plea for help. I stumbled back, gasping. The room felt suddenly colder, and that icy whisper returned, now louder and almost desperate. "Let me out," it seemed to say, echoing through the silence. I could feel the shadows liking their grip on the corners of the room, tightening as the whisper grew more insistent. "No!" I yelled, breaking the spell that held me in place. I needed to do something. I stumbled back to my laptop, praying that if I could just find a clue, just one thing to reason with this madness, I might unlock the door somehow. I sat down and opened the browser, hands shaking as I typed out the same thread about the couple's curse. But then, to my horror, the page had changed. There was a new post, written in frantic letters. "They're coming for you." A chill ran through me. I could hear something stirring behind the walls, something with a purpose. I couldn't sit and wait any longer. My heart was still racing, but I needed to confront this thing. Then came a loud crash from the other side of the door, shattering my resolve. The noise sent me scrambling back, my breath hitching once more. I glanced at Luna, whose eyes were wide and panicked. Whatever was coming wouldn't be stopped. I realized then, it was no longer just about investigating the couple anymore. It was about surviving this night. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever was on the other side. I pressed my back against the wall, chest heaving, as the door rattled violently with another crash. It felt like it was some monstrous being trying to break through. Luna whimpered again, sensing my fear. I needed to think clearly, but panic clawed at the edges of my mind. My eyes flicked to the mirror one last time. It was still pulsating with that eerie glow, the trapped figure behind the glass almost visible now, mouth shaping silent cries. There was a pull, a temptation to step closer, but I shook my head to clear the fog of terror. "No, I can't get distracted," I muttered under my breath. I crawled back to the laptop. There had to be something more, some detail I missed about the couple. I forced my fingers to move faster. The screen illuminated my panic-stricken face, which seemed to stare back at me, ghostly in the glow. Instead of reloading the original thread, I opened a new tab and searched for the house's history. Maybe I could uncover something that would help explain whatever was going on. My heart sank as I read about the couple's tragic end, a fire that engulfed the home when they were trying to escape. People said the house was cursed, that their spirits lingered. Suddenly, a loud bang pierced the heavy silence. The source came from the window this time, the sounds of shuffling outside. I froze, my throat tightening. My hand reached over to Luna's fur, seeking comfort in her presence. Whatever was out there, I couldn't let it see me. A shadow darted past the window, disappearing into the darkness. I nearly fell off the chair, adrenaline surging. Who or what was out there? I couldn't just sit back and wait. I dived into the corner of the room, keeping the light low. I needed it to stay hidden. Outside, whispers filled the air, overlapping each other, unintelligible yet urgent. "Help us. Find us. Let us out." The whispers rose, and the scratching continued, louder this time. It felt surreal, like I was suffocating under the weight of their call. Then something glinted in the darkness outside, Eyes, I was sure of it. My heart thundered as they stared back, hungry and relentless. "Get back!" I yelled, adrenaline spurring my voice louder than I'd intended. The eyes blinked out of sight and silence returned, sending chills down my spine. But then came another crash, this time against the mirror. I squinted at the reflection, horrified as I saw the face again. It was clearer now, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks. Her mouth was moving, but the glass twisted her voice into an unrecognizable shriek. Panic spread through me. Something was trying to break free, but was it the woman or something darker? Before I could gather my thoughts, the laptop screen flickered violently, and the lights overhead flickered, plunging me into darkness for a heartbeat. Everything, even the whispers, fell silent. Then came a soft knock. One single knock. On the door. I held my breath. If it was from the outside, it felt different. An invitation, perhaps? Whatever it was, all caution merged with dread. This was it. I had to decide. Would I check it? Would I answer? A rush of cold air swept through the room and the knocking came again, more insistent this time. "Let us in," it seemed to say. With trembling hands, I reached for the door handle. As my fingers brushed against the cold metal of the door handle, I hesitated. The soft knocking continued, a gentle yet persistent plea that twisted my stomach. Luna remained by my side, her eyes wide with fear, reflecting my own uncertainty. "What should I do?" I murmured to her, though I knew she couldn't answer. Her furry body pressed against my leg, grounding me in this surreal moment. I could feel the chill in the air deepening, as if something beyond the door was waiting, holding its breath alongside me. I took a deep breath and inched the handle down. It clicked softly, and I pulled the door open just a crack. The hinges creaked like a warning. Outside stood a sight I didn't expect. No face, no body, just a thick mist swirling on the doorstep, creeping into the room like fingers of smoke. The cold air pooled around my ankles, almost tangible, and invaded my senses. I stepped back, stunned. "What the hell?" I barely managed to whisper. The whispers returned, clearer now, rising from the mist, beckoning me. "Help us. Find us." A flash of light caught my attention, then vanished just as quickly. I squinted into the haze, trying to figure out where it had come from. Was that a shape moving? I strained to see, but the mist obscured everything. Panic rose again, irritable and fierce. Luna growled softly, her hackles raised. "What is it, girl?" I murmured, feeling the urge to close the door and shut out whatever was manifesting before me. I was torn. The voices urged me to step outside, yet every instinct screamed to retreat. Then the sound of shuffling shifted my attention back to the living room. It was louder now, and I could distinctly hear something dragging across the floor. My heart raced. I had to make a decision. The mist darkened, swirling around my feet as if reaching up towards me, demanding my presence. Suddenly, dread clutched at my throat. This was no simple invitation. It was a warning. "Stay here, Luna," I instructed, stepping back toward the room. "I need to see what's going on." It felt absurd. I was about to confront whatever was happening instead of running away, but fear had morphed into a burning curiosity. The mirror's reflection came flooding back into my mind, the figure crying for help. Just then, the laptop screen flickered back to life, blue light illuminating my face. The page I'd left open was filled with more details about the couple, but now there was something new. An old photograph of the couple surfaced, and the woman's features struck me like a bolt of electricity. Her eyes were the same as the ones I had seen in the mirror. That's when I saw it. A dark shape reflecting against the edge of the screen, tangled in the shadows behind me. I turned abruptly, but I was too late. It lunged at me, a figure rushing through the mist, sending me crashing back against the wall. "Luna!" I screamed, horror clutching my chest as I scrambled to my feet. But all I could hear was the echo of panicked whispers swirling around me, drowning out my thoughts and my will to fight. I stumbled backward from the force of the impact, my breath hitching in my throat. The figure melted into the mist, quick as a shadow and just as elusive. Luna was growling fiercely now, her barks echoing through the room, a stark contrast to the whispers that still hung in the air. I squinted back into the darkness, my heart racing. I needed to think. The room felt small all of a sudden, the walls closing in on me as the shadows moved restlessly. I glanced back at the laptop, the blue glow illuminating the unread messages now. "What are you?" I mumbled, the ghostly whispers still swirling in my head. A shiver skated down my spine when I noticed that the photograph had changed. The couple now appeared less like strangers and more like figures from a nightmare I couldn't quite place. More unsettling was the nearly invisible text under their picture. It read, "They never escaped." Suddenly the air thickened and the whispers intensified, chanting in an urgent rhythm, "Find us. Help us." The mist was seeping further into the room, creeping toward Luna and me, curling around our ankles. It felt wrong, like something alive. "Luna!" I shouted again, my voice trembling. I stumbled toward her, gripping the edge of the couch for support. The room seemed to pulse with energy, the shadows gathering as if waiting for something. I needed to move, find a way to confront whatever this was or gather the courage to turn and run. Before I could think, I grabbed the laptop and clutched it to my chest as though it could protect me. My eyes darted back to the door, still partially ajar, where the mist coiled like a predator ready to strike. If I was going to figure this out, I needed to face it. I took a deep breath and yelled, "What do you want?" My voice echoed, bouncing off the walls. The room went deathly silent, the whispers retreating. It felt like the calm before the storm. In the muted stillness, I glanced at the laptop. The couple's photograph seemed to shimmer. Just then, the screen flickered again, revealing another message. It was titled, "The Forgotten." Beneath it, there was a date. The date from the newspaper clipping I had seen earlier. My stomach twisted as I recognized it. The same day those two went missing. Then it hit me. The phrase "find us" took on a new meaning. They weren't just lost, they were trapped. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a plea for help. Just as I began to comprehend the weight of that reality, a cold gust of wind whooshed through the room, extinguishing the light from the laptop. My heart raced. Darkness enveloped everything. With panic clawing at my chest, I fumbled for my phone, desperately pressing the button to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating the swirling mist, and a figure emerging once more. This time, closer. Luna barked and stepped protectively in front of me. The figure seemed to solidify, caught in the beam of light, a flicker of a woman with those familiar eyes. As I tightened my grip on the laptop, I realized I couldn't go back now. I had to uncover the truth, before it was too late. Before I could react, Luna let out one final growl, and the figure lunged. Everything went dark. I woke up on the floor, the cold hardwood sending jolts through my body. Panic surged as I blinked against the faint glow of my phone's flashlight, realizing that I was still in my living room. The mist was gone, but the atmosphere felt charged, hanging thick in the air as if something had shifted. Luna was curled nearby, eyes wide and alert. I slowly got to my feet, disoriented and trying to catch my breath. My heart thumped loudly, the echoes of that moment still reverberating in my mind. Had it been a dream? I glanced around the room. The shadows were back to their usual corners. But my laptop sat open, waiting for me. I hesitated before approaching it. The last thing I remembered was the figure lunging at me. What did I miss? I picked up the laptop and took a seat, the screen flickering back to life, displaying a warning message. "They've returned." Tension knotted my stomach as I reread it. I was terrified of finding out more, yet something compelled me to dig deeper. Whatever was happening here didn't feel like a game. The urgency was building inside me. I had to help the trapped souls. I took a deep breath and clicked on the message titled "The Forgotten" from earlier. New information popped up, police reports, witness statements, and a timeline of events leading to the couple's disappearance. The date listed was a few months ago, but what caught my eye was the last entry. It was a frantic note claiming they had been last seen near the old mill on the outskirts of town. "I need to go there," I murmured to myself, adrenaline flooding my veins. My mind raced through scenarios. What would I find? Would the couple still be there, or was it just another wild story? Luna perked up, sensing my shift in energy, and I reached down to pet her reassuringly. "Let's get ready," I said, determination spilling into my voice. I quickly grabbed my coat and shoes, feeling the familiar pulse of fear and excitement. Heading to the door, I hesitated just a second, glancing back at the laptop which now displayed another flicker, an image of the old mill. The tall structure loomed like a dark sentinel against the sky. With Luna by my side, we stepped outside into the cool night air. The shadows danced all around us, and I could still feel the echoes of whispers pulling at my mind. "We'll find the truth," I promised, though uncertainty lingered. As we approached the old mill on the edge of town, the air thickened again, and I noticed movement, figures darting just beyond my vision. My heart raced, and I gripped the flashlight tighter, forcing myself to focus. I wasn't just pursuing a mystery, I was stepping into something much darker. Then, a loud crash echoed from inside the mill. I froze, the sound slicing through the night air. "What was that?" I whispered, Luna's fur bristling beside me. I knew one thing for certain. Whatever was in there was meant to stay hidden, but I couldn't turn back. We had to investigate, before whatever it was found us first. The air inside the old mill was suffocating, thick with an eerie silence that felt like a weight pressing down on me. I gripped the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. Luna trotted beside me, her senses sharp, occasionally pausing to sniff the musky air. The faint scent of decay lingered, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I stepped past the threshold. Broken beams creaked beneath my feet, and the swirling dust motes danced in the beam of light. In the dim glow, I glanced around as old machinery lay ensconced in shadows, relics of a bygone era whispering forgotten stories. I felt the weight of history press against me, stories of lives intertwined, and perhaps now lost. Then just ahead, I noticed an opening, a faded door that led deeper into the mill. Against my better judgment, I pushed it open, the rusted hinges protesting with a shriek that echoed in the quiet. Whatever had crashed just moments earlier sounded close. My pulse quickened. I stepped inside, heart hammering. The room was filled with remnants, discarded tools, and haphazard piles of debris. A cold wind swept through, sending shivers down my spine. I turned the flashlight toward the back of the space, where a faint outline of a figure caught my eye. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted. "Anyone there?" I called, my voice trembling. The figure remained motionless, shrouded in darkness. It had the shape of a person, but shadows obscured its features. I hesitated, weighing my options. This could be the couple, hungry for recognition, for salvation. But unease gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the sense that something was deeply wrong. Luna growled softly, instinctively protective. I placed my hand on her back, whispering, "Stay close." As I stepped forward, the figure shifted, and I glimpsed a glimmer of eyes, wide with desperation. A chill washed over me again. "What do you want?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, and the whispers flooded in, drowning me in their haunting pleas. "Help us," they sang, melding into the shadows around me. I could feel the ground vibrating beneath my feet like a heartbeat, an echo of something trapped beneath layers of time. Before I could say more, the figure lunged forward, its outline twisting and warping as it approached. I stumbled back, the flashlight beam flickering, casting erratic shadows. But the figure didn't stop. It moved with a speed that belied its gaunt appearance, and I felt instinct compel me to run. I turned and darted back towards the entrance, but the space felt like a maze, dark corners morphing into barriers, the outside light now just a distant memory. "No, this way," I shouted, forcing myself into the depths of the mill. The whispers grew louder, desperate, urging me onward. I felt the pull, the weight of the couple's tragedy anchoring me, demanding respect. "I'm here to help," I yelled back at the shadows, but the words felt weak against the presence closing in. Then Luna darted to the side, pulling me toward what appeared to be a disheveled table strewn with old photographs. My heart sank as I spotted the couple, their once vibrant smiles captured in moments that should have been sacred. But now, they were distorted, eyes hollow and pleading, begging for release. Thunder rumbled outside, shaking the building and rattling the remnants of a forgotten life. I needed to do something before all that was left of them entwined with the darkness. "I won't leave you," I promised, as I rifled through the images, desperate for clues. As I studied a faded picture of the couple standing in front of a different mill, one that had burned down years ago, a flicker of comprehension struck me. The tragedy wasn't just their disappearance, it was what the fire had hidden away. It must have connected to a secret that nobody had uncovered, one that the couple was still longing to share. With a spark of determination igniting inside me, I shut my eyes and listened. The whispers came clearer now, forming words in my mind, urging me to recall the stories of the mill, the fire, and the lives intertwined with them. Tearing back to the last bit of text on my phone, a description of the night of their vanishing, my eyes widened as it all crystallized. That night, they had gone to a party just before the fire, spent with friends they'd never return home to. Was there something sinister buried in their story? Suddenly the ground shook and the whispers escalated into a cacophony, blurring into one another. "Let us go," they cried, a united front that made my skin crawl. I struggled against the oppressive atmosphere that threatened to swallow me whole. "Wait," I shouted. "Help me understand, I need to know the truth." I felt silly but compelled to believe them, to urge them toward resolution. And as if answering my plea, the air simmered and shimmered, revealing what looked like a doorway, a gap in the wall pulsing with light. My instincts flared. I could dive into this, or I could fade away with the shadows. With resolve, I crossed the threshold. What I encountered on the other side was a swirling chaos, images of the couple flickering before my eyes, the night of their disappearance replaying in snapshots. They were alive, dancing, laughing. But just as quickly I saw the fire ignite, flames licking at the edges of their laughter, a haunting glee turned to despair. I stepped further, and the whispers entwined with the scenes. Find the truth. But I didn't understand the truth was lost and questions still loomed. Would they remain imprisoned in this cycle of tragedy? Or could a single understanding set them free? As light began to surface around me, I reached out to grasp the couple's hands, but they faded back into the shadows, one last silent scream etched on their faces. I stumbled backward, gasping for air, finding myself once more in the gloom of the mill. Luna looked at me, tail between her legs, unsure of what had happened. The whispers faded into echoes, dissipating into the corners of the room. I knew the journey wasn't over. I had to leave this place, but now a burden rested on my shoulders, one that involved piecing together the fragments of those lives lost. I had escaped tonight, but the past still waited, lingering like ghosts. As I turned back to leave, the shadows curled around me one last time, brushing against my skin, reminding me that the truth had only begun to unravel. The couple, I would help them, but how? And would the answer ever be clear, or would the shadows remain tangled, forever shrouded in mystery? I exited the mill into the night, heart heavy yet more resolute than before. I moved toward my apartment with questions lingering in my mind, knowing I'd never be the same again. The hauntings would echo on,